The MCP server is the implementation of the so-called Model Context Protocol. It provides Business Central data and actions to so-called AI tools, allowing them to query or even execute certain things in Business Central using natural language. Since this is a new feature, it needs to be activated in the so-called feature management. There you will find a dedicated item called MCP Server Access, and you need to activate it as the first step for all users. Once you have done that, you can open the so-called MCP Context Protocol Server configuration page within Business Central to, as the name suggests, store configurations there. So we need to distinguish here between activating the server itself, which is done in feature management, and then the one or several configuration options. To create a new configuration, I click here on the new action and can then enter a name here as an example. This name is very important for the further process, as well as an appropriate description. We then see at the bottom edge of the screen that you have the option to store different pages. Microsoft has here added the feature that allows you to access the so-called standard APIs, which are for public services that Microsoft provides by default in Business Central. But you can also integrate your own public services here as well. So again, to make the whole thing as easy as possible, there is also the option to add all standard APIs as a tool via an action here. This makes it even easier. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, especially for a test. Even in practice, the question of security naturally arises, as well as compliance, meaning the conscious limitation of functionality and the question of whether it actually makes sense to always include all of these APIs here. But you can certainly just try it out, and you'll see that there are quite a lot that end up in the list. And for testing purposes, I simply recommend that you use the first 1, 2, or 3 master data entries to get a bit familiar with the MCP server. There are also additional options later on, such as this dynamic mode, but that's not something we need to worry about right now. All we need to do now to apply this configuration, for example, in Copilot Studio, is to set the configuration to active here and then.